We don't have rooms for people like you." The sentence was spoken softly, almost politely, but it traveled across the marble lobby of the Grand Meridian like a cold draft slipping under a locked door. Marcus Johnson stood on the other side of the front desk at 11:47 p.m., wearing a gray hoodie, faded jeans, and sneakers still dusty from the airport parking lot. His 8-year-old daughter, Zoe, slept against his shoulder with one arm around his neck and a worn brown teddy bear pressed beneath her chin. Behind them, the lobby glowed with warm gold light, all polished stone, dark wood, fresh flowers, and the quiet sound of jazz drifting from the empty bar. It was the kind of place designed to make tired travelers feel safe the moment they stepped inside. Marcus knew that because he had approved every light fixture, every chair, every inch of that lobby 11 years ago. But the young man behind the desk did not know that. Derek Walsh only saw a black single father dressed too simply for a luxury hotel, holding a sleeping child at an hour when people with money usually arrived in black cars and tailored coats. Marcus lowered his eyes to Zoe for a moment, making sure the clerk's voice had not woken her. Her breathing stayed slow and even, her cheek warm against the side of his neck. "I'm asking for one room," Marcus said, keeping his voice low. "Nothing special. Just a bed for my daughter and me until morning." Derek looked at the credit card Marcus had placed on the counter, but did not touch it. He leaned back slightly, as if the card itself carried a problem he did not want on his hands. "As I said, sir, we're fully committed tonight." Marcus looked past him at the glowing reservation screen. He could see open inventory from where he stood, not much, but enough. A king room on the 12th floor. 2 doubles on 9. A corner suite blocked for maintenance, even though he knew that wing had passed inspection last month. He said none of that. Not yet. Instead, he rested one hand gently on Zoe's back and watched Derek's face with the calm patience of a man who had learned long ago that anger could make people stop listening before the truth ever arrived. "Could you check again?" Marcus asked. "My daughter's been traveling since this afternoon." Derek's mouth tightened. "There are other hotels off the interstate that may be more appropriate for your situation." A woman sitting near the fireplace glanced up from her phone. A businessman near the elevators paused with his rolling suitcase. Marcus felt the attention gathering around him, quiet and sharp, but he did not turn his head. He had walked into boardrooms with men who wanted him to fail, banks that did not believe he belonged there, and neighborhoods where people locked their car doors before they heard him speak. He knew the weight of being judged before being known. But tonight, the weight was different because Zoe was in his arms. On the ceiling above them, the security camera blinked red, recording every second. Marcus had ordered those cameras installed 6 months ago after a complaint came across his desk from a night shift guest who said she had been treated like she did not belong. The report had been buried by management, softened into language about misunderstanding and guest perception. Marcus had not forgotten it. He never forgot patterns, especially when they wore uniforms and smiled while doing harm. Derek slid the credit card back across the counter with 2 fingers. "I can't help you." Marcus did not pick it up. "Can't," he said quietly, "or won't." For the first time, Derek's polished expression cracked. It was small, barely more than a flicker, but Marcus saw it. Then the revolving doors behind him turned, and a white couple entered laughing softly, both dressed like they had come from a late dinner downtown. They had no luggage, no reservation pulled up on their phones, and no child asleep on their shoulder. Derek's face changed instantly. His smile arrived warm and practiced. "Good evening," he said, looking past Marcus as if he had become part of the furniture. "Welcome to the Grand Meridian. How can I help you tonight?" Marcus stood there in silence, his daughter breathing against him, his own hotel shining around him, and understood that the building had not failed by accident. Someone had taught it to forget its soul. 3 hours earlier, Marcus Johnson had been standing outside Gate C-12 at Charlotte Douglas International Airport with one hand around a carry-on handle and the other holding a paper cup of coffee that had gone cold before he took the second sip. The flight from London had landed late. The baggage claim had moved slowly, and the last shuttle to the parking deck had been packed with tired people pretending not to be tired. Zoe had fallen asleep before customs, woken up long enough to ask if they were home yet, then curled against him again with the complete trust of a child who believed her father could carry the whole world if he had to. Marcus had carried her through the airport, past the bright food court signs and closed souvenir shops, feeling the small weight of her body and the heavier weight of everything he had missed while he was gone. 3 months overseas had saved 2 struggling hotels from closing, protected hundreds of jobs, and kept Johnson Hospitality Group from a financial wound that would have taken years to heal. None of that mattered when he looked down and saw the birthday bracelet on Zoe's wrist, the one his sister had helped her choose because Marcus had been in Paris on the actual day she turned 8. He had called. He had sent gifts. He had watched her blow out candles over a video call while pretending the frozen screen did not break his heart. But a father knows the difference between providing and being present, and Marcus had spent too many years trying to balance both without letting either one fall. At the parking garage, the night air felt damp and cool, the kind that settled into your sleeves and made the city lights blur against the windshield. He buckled Zoe into the back seat of the black Lincoln Navigator himself, tucking her teddy bear beside her before closing the door gently. His house was 40 minutes away in good traffic. At midnight, with his eyes burning and his daughter folded awkwardly against the seat belt, 40 minutes felt like a risk he did not need to take. The Grand Meridian was 12 minutes from the airport, just off 5th Street, standing tall above the downtown lights like a promise he had once made to himself. He had bought the building when it was nearly bankrupt, back when bankers still smiled at him like he was a dreamer with a suit he could barely afford. He rebuilt it floor by floor, not just with money, but with memory. His father, Elijah Johnson, had worked the night security shift in a hotel for 22 years, wearing shoes that hurt his feet and a badge that never made rude guests speak to him with respect. When Marcus was young, Elijah used to come home after sunrise, hang his jacket over a kitchen chair, and say, "Son, you can tell the truth about a place by how it treats the person it thinks cannot do anything for it." Marcus built the Grand Meridian around that sentence. Every employee handbook began with it. Every manager heard it during training. Every guest, whether they arrived in a limousine or an old pickup truck, was supposed to receive the same dignity at the door. But 6 months earlier, complaints had started reaching Marcus in quiet ways. A woman from Atlanta said the night staff questioned her reservation 3 times while greeting guests behind her with champagne. A retired teacher wrote that she had been asked for extra identification after paying in advance. A delivery driver left a short message saying a front desk clerk made him wait outside in the rain even though the package required a signature. Each complaint came with an explanation from management. Miscommunication, policy confusion, guest sensitivity. Marcus had read every word and believed none of the excuses completely. Still, he had not expected to become the evidence himself. As he drove toward downtown, Zoe stirred in the back seat and whispered, "Are you staying this time, Daddy?" Marcus looked at her in the rearview mirror. Her eyes were closed, but the question had found him anyway. "Yes, baby," he said softly. "I am staying." A few minutes later, the Grand Meridian appeared ahead, its windows glowing gold against the dark sky. Marcus pulled into the circular drive without calling ahead, without warning the staff, without putting on the tailored coat folded in the trunk. He did not want a performance. He wanted the truth. And when he lifted Zoe into his arms and walked through the revolving doors, he had no idea the truth would be waiting for him behind the front desk, wearing a name tag and a practice smile. Zoe had always been small for her age, but when Marcus carried her through the Grand Meridian lobby, she felt even smaller than usual, folded against him with the kind of exhaustion no child should have to explain. Her braids were slightly loosened from the flight, one pink bead missing from the end, because she had twisted it off somewhere over the Atlantic and tucked it into the pocket of Marcus's hoodie for safekeeping. Her sneakers, bright purple when he bought them, were scuffed at the toes from playground races and airport floors. Marcus noticed details like that because fatherhood had trained him to notice everything. The way her breathing changed when she was about to wake, the way she held her teddy bear tighter when strangers stared too long, the way she pretended to be brave when she did not want him to worry. At the front desk, while Derek Walsh smiled past him at the couple who had just entered, Zoe stirred and lifted her head from Marcus's shoulder. Her eyes opened halfway, unfocused and heavy. "Daddy," she whispered. Marcus bent his head closer. "I am right here, baby." She blinked at the lights, at the tall flower arrangement, at the shining marble under their feet. For a second, the lobby softened in her sleepy imagination into something magical. "Is this where we sleep?" Marcus looked at Derek, who was now laughing gently at something the well-dressed man had said. "I am working on it," he said. Zoe rested her cheek against him again, but not before she noticed the credit card still lying untouched on the counter. Children see more than adults think they do. They may not understand the rules of a room, but they understand when the room has turned against someone they love. Marcus felt her fingers curl into the fabric of his hoodie. That small movement did more to steady him than anger ever could have. He shifted her weight carefully and stepped half a pace away from the desk so the couple behind him could not crowd her. The woman near the fireplace was still watching. The businessman by the elevators had stopped pretending to check his phone. No one said anything. That was the part Marcus had learned to recognize over the years. Not just the insult itself, but the silence that gathered around it. The comfortable silence of people who had decided an injustice was none of their business as long as it did not touch their own luggage. Zoe's teddy bear slipped from her arm and dropped onto the marble with a soft sound. Marcus crouched immediately, one knee touching the cold floor, still keeping one arm around her as he picked it up and brushed invisible dust from its worn fur. "Captain made it," he whispered, pressing the bear back into her hands. A faint smile crossed Zoe's face, small but real. "He is brave," she murmured. "Just like you," Marcus said. She shook her head sleepily. "No, like you." For a moment, the lobby noise faded. Marcus looked at his daughter and saw every reason he had built anything at all. Not the hotels, not the company, not the name on the legal documents, or the quiet respect that arrived whenever people finally learned who he was. He had built his life, so Zoe would never have to measure her worth by the way strangers chose to look at her. He had failed at many things as a father. He had missed school mornings, parent lunches, a Thanksgiving art show, and one birthday dinner that still sat in his memory like an unpaid debt. But he had never allowed her to believe she was less than anyone. Not once. Derek finished handing 2 key cards to the couple, wishing them a pleasant stay with a warmth Marcus had not been offered. The couple rolled their small designer bags toward the elevators, and Zoe watched them go with the quiet confusion of a child trying to solve a problem adults had made ugly. "Daddy," she said, barely above a whisper. "I thought he said there were no rooms." Marcus looked down at her. He could have explained the truth in a dozen ways. He could have told her that some people confuse money with value, clothing with character, and skin with status. He could have told her that the world sometimes draws invisible doors in places where doors should not exist. But she was 8 years old, tired, and still hoping the night would be simple. So Marcus touched the side of her face with his thumb and said, "Sometimes grown people make mistakes, Zoe. We are going to give him a chance to fix it." She nodded because she trusted him, and that trust cut deeper than Derek's words ever could. Marcus stood again, taller now, calm but no longer passive. He placed the teddy bear securely under Zoe's arm, picked up the credit card from the counter, and slid it back toward Derek with quiet precision. "My daughter needs to sleep," he said. "I need you to check the system again." Derek looked at the card, then at Marcus, then at Zoe, and for the first time that night, Marcus saw irritation replace the polished smile. It was not the irritation of a busy employee. It was the irritation of a man being asked to treat someone with dignity after he had already decided they did not deserve it. Derek did not check the system the way Marcus had asked. He tapped one key, glanced at the screen for less than a second, and looked back with the kind of patience people use when they want their refusal to sound reasonable. "There is nothing available," he said. "I am sorry." Marcus watched his hands. Not his face, not his smile, his hands. Derek's fingers never moved to the room inventory tab. He never opened the late arrival list. He never searched by room type or cancellation status. He simply performed the appearance of checking, and sometimes appearance was where dishonesty felt safest. "You just gave 2 key cards to guests who did not have a reservation," Marcus said. His voice stayed even. Derek's shoulders lifted slightly. "They are loyalty members. You did not ask for their names until after you told them you could help." Derek's eyes flicked toward the elevators, then back to Marcus. The couple was already gone, swallowed by the golden doors, rolling into comfort that had been found for them in under 2 minutes. "Sir, I am not going to discuss another guest's reservation with you." "I am not asking you to discuss their reservation," Marcus said. "I am asking why a room exists for them and not for my daughter." Zoe had gone quiet in his arms. Too quiet. Marcus knew that silence. It was the silence she used. when adults were speaking over her head, and she was trying to decide whether the problem was somehow her fault. He shifted so her face was turned away from the desk, away from Derek's expression, away from the growing attention in the lobby. The woman by the fireplace finally looked down at her phone again, but not before Marcus caught the discomfort in her face, the kind that wanted the scene to end without requiring her to choose a side. Derek straightened his navy jacket and lowered his voice. The Grand Meridian maintains certain standards. At this hour, with no luggage, no reservation, and a child who clearly needs rest, I think it would be better for everyone if you tried a property better suited to your needs. There it was. Not written in any policy manual, not printed on any sign, but placed carefully between words like standards and needs. Marcus felt something in him go still. His father used to say that disrespect often wears a tie because it knows people are less likely to challenge it when it sounds professional. Better for everyone, Marcus repeated. Who is everyone? Derek hesitated. The hotel. Marcus looked around the lobby he had once walked through before the grand opening, when the marble was still covered in protective paper and the chandeliers had not yet been lowered from their crates. He remembered standing in this exact place with his father 2 months before Elijah died. The old man had leaned on his cane, looked up at the unfinished ceiling, and said he hoped Marcus would build something that welcomed the tired before it impressed the wealthy. Now his daughter stood in that same lobby, half asleep, being told without being told that she had arrived on the wrong side of some invisible line. The front doors turned again, and a man in a dark overcoat stepped inside alone, carrying a leather briefcase and talking through a wireless earpiece. He walked straight to the desk, barely glancing at Marcus. Derek's face warmed instantly. Good evening, Mr. Phillips. Long flight. The man nodded, still on his call. Terrible. Tell me you have something. My assistant forgot to book. Of course, Derek said. We will take care of you. Marcus did not move. Zoe lifted her head again, her eyes following the exchange with painful focus. Derek typed quickly now, not pretending this time. He found a room, confirmed an upgrade, and slid a registration card across the counter. We have a premium king available on 14. I will include late checkout. Mr. Phillips signed without looking up from his call. He never noticed the father and child standing 3 feet away. But Zoe noticed. Her hand tightened around Captain the teddy bear until one of its soft ears bent under her fingers. Daddy, she whispered, why does he get one? Marcus lowered his mouth close to her ear. Because some people still have something to learn. Derek heard enough to flush. Sir, I need you to step aside. You are holding up the desk. Marcus looked behind him. There was no line, no crowd. Only the quiet pressure of a room waiting to see how much humiliation a tired black father would absorb before he became the problem they expected him to be. Marcus placed his credit card back into his wallet, slowly, deliberately. Then he looked Derek directly in the eyes. Call your manager. Derek's expression hardened. That will not change availability. Then it should not hurt to call. For several seconds, neither man spoke. The jazz from the bar kept playing. The elevators opened and closed. Zoe's cheek rested against Marcus's shoulder again, but he knew she was not asleep anymore. Derek reached for the phone with visible reluctance, pressed a button, and turned slightly away. Ms. Whitmore, he said, his voice now carrying the clean, wounded tone of someone preparing to sound like the victim. I need you at the front desk. There is a guest refusing to leave. Marcus did not correct him. He simply looked up at the red light of the security camera blinking above the lobby and hoped, for the sake of the building his father had once blessed with tired eyes and honest hands, that it was recording clearly. Claire Whitmore arrived from the hallway behind the front desk with the brisk confidence of someone who had already decided what the problem was before seeing it. She was in her late 30s, dressed in a charcoal blazer with a silver manager pin on the lapel, her hair pulled back neatly, her expression calm enough to look professional from a distance and cold enough to make Marcus understand why Derek had called her. She did not look at Zoe first. That was the first thing Marcus noticed. A child was half asleep in her father's arms just before midnight in a hotel lobby, and Claire's eyes went to Marcus's hoodie, his sneakers, the absence of luggage, then finally to the credit card no longer on the counter. Good evening, she said, though there was nothing welcoming in it. I understand there is an issue. Derek stepped in before Marcus could answer. I explained that we are fully committed, Ms. Whitmore. He has no reservation, no luggage, and he became confrontational when I suggested other accommodations. Marcus looked at Derek, not with surprise, but with a tired recognition. Lies often came dressed as summaries. Claire turned to Marcus with a small practiced smile. Sir, our associate has informed you of our availability. At this time, there is nothing further we can offer. He just checked in a walk-in guest, Marcus said. Before that, he checked in 2 more. Claire's smile did not move. Our team makes decisions based on multiple factors, including membership status, room type, and operational limitations. Then check the system yourself. That will not be necessary. Zoe shifted against Marcus, and this time Claire glanced at her, but only for a second. Not long enough to ask if she needed water. Not long enough to offer a chair. Not long enough to remember that hospitality was supposed to begin with the person in front of you, not the policy you could hide behind. My daughter is exhausted, Marcus said. I am asking for one available room. If there are no rooms, show me that there are no rooms. Claire's posture stiffened. Sir, we do not provide internal inventory information to non-guests. The words landed with care. Non-guests. Not father. Not traveler. Not man holding a sleeping child. Marcus heard the category she had placed him in, and he saw the way Derek relaxed behind her, comforted by authority standing between him and accountability. What exactly makes someone a guest here? Marcus asked. A reservation? Claire replied. A valid method of payment. Compliance with hotel standards. I have payment. Payment is not the only consideration. The lobby seemed to shrink around that sentence. Even the jazz from the bar felt farther away. Marcus could feel Zoe listening now, her small body still against him. He wished she had stayed asleep. He wished he could carry her upstairs without teaching her another lesson about the world before she was ready. Claire lowered her voice, but not enough. This is a luxury property. Many of our guests expect a certain environment. When someone arrives late at night without a reservation, without bags, dressed in a manner that raises questions, my responsibility is to protect that environment. Marcus took one slow breath. Dressed in a manner that raises questions, he repeated. Claire looked away first. I am not going to debate language with you. No, Marcus said softly. I do not think you want to. At the far side of the lobby, an older security guard had appeared near the hallway entrance. Raymond Ellis wore the hotel uniform with careful pride, though the sleeves were slightly loose around his wrists. He had a gray mustache, tired eyes, and the stillness of a man who had seen enough in life to know when something was wrong before anyone admitted it. His gaze landed on Marcus, moved to Zoe, then returned to Marcus's face. Something changed in him. It was not dramatic. His chin lifted a fraction. His eyes widened. His mouth opened as if a name had reached his tongue before fear stopped it. Marcus saw the recognition and gave the smallest shake of his head. Not yet. Raymond froze beside the hallway, one hand resting on his radio, caught between the job that paid his bills and the truth standing under the chandelier. Claire did not notice. She was already reaching for the neat phrases people use when they want removal to sound like procedure. Sir, I am going to ask you to leave the property voluntarily. If you refuse, security will escort you outside. Zoe lifted her head fully now. Her eyes were wet, not crying yet, but close. Daddy, she whispered, are we in trouble? That question moved through Marcus more painfully than anything Claire had said. He turned slightly away from the desk and lowered himself until Zoe's feet touched the marble. Then he crouched in front of her, steadying her with both hands on her shoulders. No, sweetheart, he said. You are not in trouble. Did I do something? No, his voice softened. You did nothing wrong. Behind him, Claire sighed, impatient with tenderness because it delayed the removal she had already chosen. Marcus stood again, placing himself between Zoe and the desk. His calm had not broken, but it had changed shape. It was no longer the calm of a man waiting to be helped. It was the calm of a man measuring how deep the damage had gone. Ms. Whitmore, he said, before you call security on a father and child asking for a room, I want you to check the system yourself. Claire's eyes narrowed. And I want you to understand that you do not get to walk into this hotel and make demands. Marcus glanced once more at Raymond, whose face had gone pale beneath the lobby lights. Then Marcus looked back at Claire. That is where you are wrong, he said quietly. But I am going to give you one more chance to find out why. For a moment, no one behind the desk moved. Claire Whitmore held Marcus's gaze as if waiting for him to look away first, But Marcus had spent too many years being underestimated to offer anyone that comfort. Derek stood behind her with his arms close to his sides, his confidence returning now that management had taken his version as truth. Raymond Ellis remained near the hallway, still as a man listening for thunder in a clear sky. Marcus turned his head slowly, studying the lobby as if he were seeing it for the first time and the thousandth at once. "Who authorized the anniversary logo behind the desk to be replaced?" he asked. Claire blinked. "Excuse me." Marcus nodded toward the polished gold emblem mounted on the wall behind Derek. "That is the current corporate mark. This property was supposed to keep the original Grand Meridian crest in the lobby through the end of the year. It was part of the anniversary plan." Derek gave a short laugh under his breath. "Sir, you do not need to concern yourself with branding." Marcus did not look at him. "And the east wall," he continued, turning slightly toward the seating area. "There used to be a framed photograph there. Opening night. Staff lined up across the staircase. It was moved." Claire's expression tightened, but not with recognition. With irritation. "You appear to know a great deal about our decorating choices." "Those were not decorating choices." The words were quiet, but something in them made Raymond lower his eyes. Marcus saw it. The old guard remembered the photograph. He remembered the opening night. He remembered Marcus standing beside Elijah Johnson under those same chandeliers, younger then, proud but nervous, holding the ceremonial key the mayor had placed in his hand. Zoe, now standing beside Marcus with Captain tucked under one arm, rubbed her eyes and leaned against his leg. The movement made the small zipper pocket of her backpack fall open. Something brass slipped halfway out, catching the lobby light. Marcus noticed it too late. Zoe reached in and pulled out the old key she had carried since they left the airport, the one she liked because it felt heavy and important, the one Marcus had let her keep during the trip so she would have something of his when he was away. The key was not meant to open any door anymore. It was symbolic, solid brass, engraved with the words Founder's Key on one side and Grand Meridian, 5th Street on the other. Zoe held it up sleepily. "Daddy, do you want your hotel key back?" The lobby went quiet in a different way. Not silent enough for truth, but quiet enough for confusion. Derek looked at the key and smirked, choosing the easiest explanation because the real one was too dangerous to consider. "That is a cute souvenir," he said. "We sell similar items in the gift shop." Marcus took the key gently from Zoe's hand before she could answer. "This one did not come from the gift shop." Claire's eyes flicked to the engraving, then away again. She was close enough to read it. Marcus knew she was. But some people do not miss clues because they are hidden. They miss them because accepting them would require them to admit they were wrong. "Sir," Claire said, her voice sharper now, "I am done entertaining this. You know old photographs, you notice logos, and you have a novelty key. None of that gives you the right to harass my staff." "Your staff?" Marcus asked. "Yes," she said. "My staff." Raymond's jaw tightened. Marcus saw shame move through his face like a shadow. The older man had not spoken, but his silence was beginning to cost him something. Marcus understood that cost. Men like Raymond often lived one paycheck away from disaster. A sick wife, a mortgage, a grandchild who needed school clothes. The world liked to demand courage from people it never protected afterward. Marcus did not judge him for being afraid, but he also knew fear could not be allowed to manage a lobby. Claire reached for the radio clipped to her belt. "Raymond," she said without turning around, "please assist this gentleman and his daughter outside." Raymond did not move. Derek looked over. "Raymond," the old guard swallowed. His eyes met Marcus's for one long second. In that look, there was memory, apology, and a question Marcus did not answer. "Not yet." Claire finally turned. "Did you hear me?" Raymond's hand tightened around the radio. "Yes, ma'am," he said, but his feet stayed where they were. Zoe pressed closer to Marcus. "Daddy, can we just go home?" That nearly broke him. Not the insult, not the refusal, not the way Claire had wrapped judgment in policy. It was his daughter asking to leave a place that carried his name in every legal document, a place built from his father's lesson, because strangers had made her feel unwelcome. Marcus crouched again, taking the Founder's Key in one hand and Zoe's small fingers in the other. "We will not stay where we are not treated with respect," he said softly. "But before we leave, we are going to tell the truth." He stood and looked back at Claire. "You still have a chance to check the system, review the camera, and correct this privately." Claire lifted her chin. There is nothing to correct. Marcus closed his hand around the brass key, feeling the engraved letters press into his palm. The first hidden door of the night had just opened, and everyone in the lobby was still, pretending they could not see it. Claire Whitmore looked at Marcus as if his calm had become an inconvenience she could no longer tolerate. "Raymond," she said again, louder this time, "assist them outside." The word "them" landed harder than she probably intended. Not this guest. Not this father and his daughter. Them. A category. A problem to be moved out of sight before the marble lobby had to admit what it had become. Raymond took one slow step forward, but his eyes stayed on Marcus, not on Claire. The old guard's face carried the weight of a man standing at the edge of a choice he should have made minutes ago. Marcus understood that kind of hesitation, but he could not let Zoe pay for it. She was standing beside his leg now, fully awake, one hand in his, the other wrapped around Captain the teddy bear. Her shoulders were drawn in, making herself smaller in a place that should have made her feel safe. Derek came around from behind the desk, smoothing the front of his navy jacket as though the uniform made his judgment official. "Sir," he said, "you need to stop making this difficult. There are plenty of motels off the highway where you and your daughter would be more comfortable." Marcus turned his head slowly. "More comfortable for us?" he asked. "Or more comfortable for you?" Derek's face tightened. "I am saying this is not the right environment for a child at this hour. My child needs a bed. Then maybe you should have planned better." The sentence struck the room with a softness that made it worse. Zoe looked up immediately. Marcus felt her hand go cold in his. For one breath, no one moved. Claire did not correct Derek. Raymond closed his eyes for half a second. The woman by the fireplace lowered her phone into her lap. Even Mr. Phillips, the man who had received a room without a reservation, had stopped near the elevators and was watching now with the uncomfortable focus of someone realizing the scene he had ignored might have been about him too. Derek, emboldened by the silence, looked down at Zoe and added, "Sweetheart, your father should have taken you somewhere he could afford." Zoe's face changed. It was not dramatic. She did not sob or make a scene. Her lower lip trembled once, and her eyes filled in that quiet, controlled way children use when they are trying not to embarrass the adult they love. Marcus felt something inside him settle into place. Not rage. Rage was too loud, too easy, too useful for people waiting to call him unreasonable. What settled in him was decision. He released Zoe's hand only long enough to crouch in front of her. "Look at me, baby," he said. She did. "You are not less than anyone in this room." Zoe swallowed. "But he said we cannot stay here." Marcus gently brushed a loose braid away from her cheek. "He said something wrong. Grown people can be wrong, even when they are standing behind a big desk." She looked at the marble floor. "Did I make you lose the room?" Marcus's heart tightened. "No, you did not lose anything. And nobody in this room gets to decide what you are worth." He stood, placing himself fully between Zoe and Derek. His voice stayed low, but every person nearby heard it. "You can disrespect me. You can hide behind policy. You can pretend a room does not exist because you do not like the way I walked in. But you do not speak to my daughter as if she is a burden." Derek's mouth opened, then closed. Claire stepped forward, trying to recover control. "Sir, you are escalating this situation." Marcus looked at her. "No, Ms. Whitmore. Your employee escalated it when he tried to teach my child shame." Claire's expression flickered, but pride held it in place. "This conversation is over." "Not yet." Marcus reached into his pocket and took out his phone. The screen lit his face with a pale glow as he scrolled past missed messages from Europe, unread reports, and the contact he had hoped not to use tonight. Patricia Monroe, chairwoman of the Johnson Hospitality Group Board, had told him before he left London to call if the night audit revealed anything serious. He had almost laughed then. Now he understood she had been more right than either of them knew. Claire folded her arms. "Calling someone will not change hotel policy." Marcus tapped the number and lifted the phone to his ear. "I am not calling someone to change hotel policy," he said. "I am calling someone. Because this hotel forgot who wrote it." Raymond took another step forward, and this time his voice came out rough but clear. "Ms. Whitmore," he said, "you should listen to him." Claire turned sharply. "Excuse me." Raymond removed his cap with both hands, the way old-school employees did when respect mattered. His eyes stayed on Marcus. "That is Mr. Johnson." The lobby went still. Derek gave a short, nervous laugh. "What?" Raymond's voice shook, but he did not take it back. Marcus Johnson. The phone connected. On the other end, Patricia Monroe answered with the alertness of a woman who had learned that midnight calls from Marcus were never casual. "Marcus?" she said. He looked at Claire, then Derek, then down at Zoe, who was watching him with wet eyes and complete trust. "Patricia," Marcus said quietly, "I need you to call the Grand Meridian front desk. Put it on speaker when they answer." The front desk phone rang once, then twice, each tone cutting through the lobby with a clean, ordinary sound that somehow made the room feel less ordinary with every second. Claire stared at the phone as if it had betrayed her. Derek looked from Raymond to Marcus, still wearing the faint smile of a man waiting for the joke to explain itself. Zoe stood close to her father, her small hand tucked into the back pocket of his hoodie, holding on without saying a word. On the third ring, Claire reached across the counter and pressed the speaker button. "Grand Meridian front desk, this is Claire Whitmore." Patricia Monroe's voice filled the space, calm, sharp, and unmistakably in command. "Claire, this is Patricia Monroe, chairwoman of Johnson Hospitality Group. You are currently speaking with Marcus Johnson, owner of the Grand Meridian and chairman of this company. Place your full attention on him." No one moved. Even the revolving doors seemed to pause. Derek's smile disappeared first. Then the color drained from his face in slow degrees, as if his body understood the truth before his pride could accept it. Claire's eyes went to Marcus, then to the brass key in his hand, then to Raymond standing with his cap against his chest. "Ms. Monroe," she said carefully, "there may be some confusion." "There is no confusion," Patricia replied. "Mr. Johnson called me from inside his own lobby. I am listening." Marcus stepped closer to the desk and placed the founder's key on the marble counter. The brass caught the chandelier light and threw a small gold reflection onto Derek's name tag. "Pull up the live inventory," Marcus said. Claire hesitated. "Mr. Johnson, I now." He did not raise his voice. He did not need to. Claire turned to the computer with stiff hands. Derek watched the screen as if it might save him. It did not. Room 1214, available. Room 908, available. Room 917, available. A premium king on 14, assigned minutes earlier to Mr. Phillips, who still stood near the elevators with his briefcase lowered to his side. Marcus looked at the screen, then at Derek. "You told me there were no rooms." Derek swallowed. "I believed." "No," Marcus said. "You decided." The words sat between them with more force than anger could have carried. Marcus turned to Claire. "Open the lobby camera from 11:47 p.m. to now." Claire's hands paused above the keyboard. "Is that necessary?" Patricia's voice came through the speaker. "It is mandatory." Claire opened the security feed. The monitor showed Marcus entering with Zoe asleep on his shoulder, showed Derek refusing to touch the credit card, showed the couple arriving without a reservation and receiving keys, showed Mr. Phillips being welcomed and upgraded, showed Zoe looking up at her father after being told without being told that she did not belong. The footage did not shout. It simply told the truth in silence. Raymond lowered his head. The woman by the fireplace covered her mouth. Mr. Phillips stepped forward, his face changed by shame. "I did not realize," he said quietly. Marcus looked at him. Most people do not realize what they are allowed not to notice. Then he turned back to Derek and Claire. "This hotel was built because my father spent 22 years guarding doors that men like you walked through without seeing him. I promised him that no one would ever walk into a Johnson property and be measured by their clothes, their skin, their accent, their job, or the hour they arrived needing help." Derek's eyes were wet now, but Marcus did not soften the truth to make him comfortable. "You did not deny me a room because the hotel was full. You denied me a room because you thought I was powerless." Claire straightened, trying one last time to protect herself. "Mr. Johnson, I was relying on my associate's report. And when I asked you to check it yourself, you refused." Her mouth closed. Marcus picked up Zoe's teddy bear from the counter where she had set it down without realizing and handed it back to her. Only then did he speak again. "Derek Walsh, your employment with this property ends tonight. Human Resources will process the paperwork in the morning, and until then, Raymond will escort you to collect your personal belongings under standard procedure." Derek looked as if the floor had shifted beneath him. Marcus turned to Claire. "You are suspended pending a full investigation into guest complaints, staff training, and every denied late-night walk-in from the last 6 months." You will not supervise another shift until this company understands exactly how deep this went. Patricia added from the phone, I will notify legal and human resources immediately. Marcus looked around the lobby, at the guests, the camera, the employees frozen behind polished surfaces. Let me be clear. The punishment is not the lesson. The lesson is what happens next. He lifted the founder's key from the counter and closed Zoe's fingers around it. This place forgot its purpose tonight. Tomorrow, we begin teaching it again. Marcus did not take the presidential suite that night. He did not ask for champagne, apologies in writing, or anyone to stand in the lobby and repeat what they had done wrong. He asked Raymond to check him into a standard double on the 9th floor, the same kind of room he had requested from the beginning. When the elevator doors closed, Zoe leaned against his side with the founder's key in one hand and Captain the teddy bear in the other. For the first time since they had entered the hotel, her breathing began to slow again. Upstairs, Marcus unlocked the room, turned on one lamp, and checked the windows, the bathroom, and the thermostat the way fathers do in unfamiliar rooms, even when the room belongs to them. Zoe sat on the edge of the bed, her purple sneakers dangling above the carpet. Daddy, she said, are they scared of you now? Marcus stopped beside the dresser. The question hurt because it was not what he wanted her to remember. He sat beside her and loosened the laces of her sneakers. Maybe a little, he said honestly. But that is not what I wanted. Zoe looked down at the brass key in her lap. Then why did you make the phone call? Marcus removed one sneaker, then the other, placing them neatly by the bed. Because being quiet is good when you are trying to understand the truth. But once the truth is clear, staying quiet can let people keep hurting others. Zoe thought about that with the seriousness she brought to everything important. Did they hurt us because we are black? Marcus took a slow breath. He never lied to his daughter, but he had learned that truth given to a child had to come with something strong enough to hold it. They judged us before they knew us, he said. Our skin was part of what they thought they saw. My clothes were part of it too. The hour, the way we arrived, the story they made up in their heads. But none of those things changed who we were. Zoe pressed Captain to her chest. I did not like how it felt. Neither did I. Marcus brushed a loose bead at the end of her braid. But I want you to remember this. Their mistake did not make you smaller. It only showed what they still needed to learn. She nodded slowly, then handed him the founder's key. Can you keep it now? Marcus closed his hand around it. Only if you promise me something. What? Never let anyone make you feel like you have to prove you are human. Zoe's eyes grew heavy again. I promise. She was asleep within 5 minutes, curled beneath the white comforter with the teddy bear tucked under her chin. Marcus stood beside the bed for a long time, listening to the quiet hum of the air conditioner and the distant city beyond the glass. He thought of his father walking hotel hallways at 3 in the morning, invisible to men who wore expensive watches and expected doors to open for them. He thought of the lobby downstairs, beautiful and broken in a way marble could not hide. By 8 o'clock the next morning, every department head at the Grand Meridian was seated in the conference room on the 17th floor. Patricia Monroe had arrived before sunrise. Raymond sat near the back, nervous, his cap resting on his knees. Marcus did not begin with Derek. He did not begin with Claire. He began with Elijah Johnson, a night security guard who taught his son that hospitality was not luxury, but dignity offered before anyone asked for it. Then Marcus played the camera footage once, without commentary. When it ended, no one spoke. This company will not be measured by how we treat people who look important, Marcus said. We will be measured by how we treat people when we think nobody powerful is watching. New training began that week. Guest complaints were reopened. Late-night walk-in policies were rewritten. Every manager in the company was required to work one full overnight shift beside front desk staff, security, housekeeping, and valet, not to supervise them, but to understand them. Raymond was promoted to lead the new Dignity training program, not because he had been perfect, but because he had finally chosen truth when silence would have been easier. A month later, the opening night photograph returned to the east wall. In it, a younger Marcus stood beside his father, both men smiling under unfinished chandeliers, holding the same brass key. Beneath the frame, Marcus added one line in small black letters. Every person who walks through these doors is already worthy of respect. On the morning Zoe saw it, she slipped her hand into her father's and looked up at the lobby with a shy smile. Does the hotel remember now? Marcus looked at Raymond greeting a tired family at the entrance, at a housekeeper laughing softly with a guest by the elevators, at the front desk clerk offering water to a delivery driver who had come in from the July heat. He squeezed Zoe's hand. "It is learning," he said, and together they walked through the lobby, not as people who needed permission to belong, but as a father and daughter carrying their dignity so quietly that the whole room finally knew how to honor it.